Hey guys, another week has passed, and it's time for me to talk about the books I've read this week. So let's get started. The first book I read this week is Honestly Ben by Bill Konigsberg. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. The last name, I mean. Um, this is a sequel to Openly Straight, where it talks about where the main focus is not the main character is not um, the character from the last book. It's mainly about his love interest. So this takes place after the prequel of the other book, Openly Straight. Except it turns out that this is the character in this. Um, Ben is talking about how his parents, mostly his dad, is like very strict and wants him to succeed so he can work on the farm or other thing, amongst other things. And it talks about his feelings towards the fallout between him and his the new his boyfriend in college because as you know in the last book his boyfriend reveals that he always knew he was gay instead of just figuring this out. Well, Ben figures it out and it's like, okay, I can't see you. Like, I'm really upset at you right now. I'm just gonna go away. And yeah, the book takes place immediately afterwards with this character, and so yeah, it's actually a really good. It's actually a pretty damn good sequel to this. Um, the main like he not only has feelings for his friend whose name is Rafi, but he has feelings towards another girl whose name is Hannah, and she wants to, and they both end up seeing each other, and at the same time he still is has some feelings towards Rafi. At the same time, he doesn't think he's bisexual, but he's it's more like he likes girls except this one guy. I don't know what to call it either. I kind of forgot, but yeah, I actually do like this book. I like it better than Openly Straight. Although there are some things I don't like about it, like Rafi can be a little bit insensitive at times, although it is not intentional, as he says. He's a little bit insensitive, and his relationship with Hannah could have been a little bit more worked out because, like, even when I read this book for the first time last year, I was like, I mean, it's good so far, but it's like it's kind of on the wayside to the point where I kind of sort of like forget that she was in the book. Like they go on a couple of dates. It's very romantic, and then it goes to Rafi, and it's like spending a little bit more time with him, and it's like like Hannah just kind of like, okay, you know what, figure it out, and then she leaves, and she's gone for like several chapters at a time, and that's kind of what I don't like because like she's gone for a lot of the time to the point where he calls her, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot she was in this book. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the issue I have. Like, she is funny, she is smart. The problem is like she's kind of an afterthought in the end because it's clearly an end game between Ben and Rafi. And although I really like them as a couple, maybe he could have just not Hannah couldn't have been in this book, or not could have been at all, or just helped out find out his sexuality. I mean, he does, but it kind of hurt her, and she's not feeling 100%, which is totally understandable because like he's trying to figure things out too. It's just that he could have like he has taken some time to figure things out, and on top of that, there's the pressures in school and the pressures of like succeeding in school and his sports team that he's a part of and trying to actually be better for his dad, like being a better person for his dad. And it's kind of pressure, and it's like it's all build up. Like you can tell, like for those of you who like been this way, you can totally understand where he's coming from. Like yeah, sure, sometimes he's a bit dickish. Like a lot of the time, some of the time the characters are a bit dickish, but you can totally relate to what you see here or read here. And yeah, again, the only problem I have is like Rafi is a little bit insensitive, a little bit, um, but and Hannah is kind of underwritten and kind of forgotten in the wayside. But as is, I kind of do like this a little bit better than Openly Straight. I like Openly Straight. I like this one's a little bit better because it actually made me laugh a little bit more, and it actually kind of explores a little bit of humanity with the main character in here. And so, yeah, that's actually pretty decent. And yeah, it's kind of fun. Is it a recommend? Mm, I suggest reading it. Like this is pretty much a borrow type of book. It's not. Didn't get this from the library. Bought it firsthand, new in stores, or new in stores at the time. It's just that this is a borrow reading. Now, an LGBTQ book that I actually have want to recommend is Leia on the Offbeat, the sequel to Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. Now, amazingly enough, this is another book that is a sequel to this is a sequel to another book with another character who existed. Holy crap! I just realized, holy crap! I read two of these in a row, and the sequels take place like not in the main character, but a side character or a supporting character, one of the main cast. Yeah, this takes place like um, uh, the last year of high school, like near the last year of high school, and Leia is figuring out that like she's friends with Simon, like Simon and his boyfriend are together. They go to the same school together. They're all trying to figure out where to go to school, and meanwhile she's figuring out that she's bisexual. Well, she already knows she's bisexual for a while. Her mom knows, and her mom is with another man, mostly because their parents were separated. He moved away. He's paying child support, and so replacing him is another guy who she doesn't like that much because different and high school and whatever. So she's figuring out that she's bisexual, and she's actually beginning to actually have a crush on another friend who was introduced as a new student in the last book. And so, yeah, that's pretty much. And she's trying to figure out what to do in college. She's a drummer in a band, and it's pretty much like high school drama and comedy. Is it as good as Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda? It's it's on par. I'd say I like Simon better, but this is actually pretty funny as well. Like it's actually not that. It's actually better than I thought it would be. If I like rated Simon like 4.5, I rate this 4.2, 4.2, because it's pretty damn close. And so like all this, and it's actually a pretty damn good read. And yeah, this is like an LGBTQ book that I would recommend, along with Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, because it's funny, and although there's some character development from the last book which I feel was a bit digressed. Like there was a regression in character and motivation in terms of it, but in the end, I actually think that this is actually a pretty solid follow up to a book that actually was a hard act to follow initially, and so it's actually a pretty damn good read. Um, just uh, just read Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda first, and I'm here's hoping for a third book in the series. Another book which I've read, which is also LGBTQ, is Boy Meets Boy by Daniel Levithan. Sorry, receipts in here. I'll put that back in later. And it's pretty messed up. Not the book itself, but the cover is like dirty. It's been in between the drawers here for a while, so sorry about that. Um, this is pretty much about a high school kid who's openly gay. Like, unlike the other two books which I've read, um, Leia, nobody knows that Leia is bisexual at all, and in here, everybody knows that he's gay. The main character is gay, and it's about the main character is in high school, and he's like, and he what's it called? Sorry, brain fart. And the main character's in high school, and everybody knows he's gay. And one day there's a new student who moves in who a new student who moves and immediately kind of has a crush on, like, oh my god, he's really cute. Like they meet someplace in the city, and then he finds out that the new student goes to his same high school now, and then they meet and they try to figure things out. But there's some complications, like um, there's a there's a transgendered female football player who is on the team, but who had to break the heart of another player, um, because she wasn't her type. She wasn't his. He wasn't her type, so we had to break. So she had to break it down to him gently, which caused him to get upset, and so the main character's friend decides to date the other guy, or the guy who was crushed on. And on top of that, the main character's ex, who was distant with him at first, and then when he finds somebody who likes him, he's having trouble figuring things out and wants to have him back. So it's a really it's not complicated, but I don't again I don't explain things that often. I don't explain things well. I don't explain things well, but this is actually a pretty damn good book. Like, yeah, what I said was complicated because I accidentally made it complicated, but in the end, it's actually a really simple read, about 200 pages. Okay, the main story is about 180 pages, plus there's a short story after the end. Like there's this main story, then there's questions from the author, and then there's a short story involving a transgender woman whose name is Infinite Darlene, who's on a date with a male cheerleader from another football team. And it's actually, honestly, I found that the short story very, very sweet. It's so romantic. I can't believe I'm saying this again. Ever since Night of Cake and Puppets, it's a romantic thing, and the whole story is romantic. Like the the love between the two main characters is romantic and cute and makes my heart fuzzy inside. And I don't get to say that often because people are gonna look at me weird. And so yeah, I recommend this book. It was made in 2003. This is the 10th anniversary edition, so this is from 2013. Here's hoping that they make a 20th anniversary edition in 2023. But yeah, this is a good book. I recommend this for LGBTQ community or readers. But then again, a lot of them already know about this book. So another book, which is pretty much LGBTQ, is a book called Agents of the Realm by Mildred Lewis. I got this book. I found out about this book, which is a webcomic, when I went to a store in Toronto called bookstore slash cafe called Glad Day. It's called Glad Day Bookstore. GLAAD Day Bookstore. And I was walking around, and actually I found out about a few of these things at that store, and I found this. Me and my friend Agnes went to the bookstore one day, and she showed me this, and I'm like, okay, I'll just read this. And I started reading, and I'm like, okay, I'm really interested. I'm into it. And then in about 40 minutes, I finished the book, and I'm like, I want to get this book. So I bought it, and I didn't buy this book immediately. I got it the next time I went, and actually it's like, oh, this is actually a very good book. It's a web comic, which was thanks to, like, I think Kickstarter or Patreon or whatever. It was put into book form, which was fine with me because I'd rather just have the book form. Like, yeah, it's more cluttered, but you know what? Sometimes you just need it in book form, just in case everything goes offline. So it's about these 5 women who actually have these, like, stones or gems, or they're chosen through magical devices, which by sheer coincidence, like, they could be scattered, like, these 5 devices could be scattered throughout the city, and somehow they actually get found by several people, and then they come together. So it's pretty much like Destiny, a combination of Destiny said so, and because the plot says so, and the five of them, the five people are all women, and they've all been chosen because they found these devices on the ground. And there's this woman who actually tells them about these creatures called bleeds, which which are pretty much. I don't want to spoil anything. I actually don't want to spoil anything, which are actually some things from the past, and that's all I'm gonna say because it's revealed in this book. And if you want to read it, it's called Agents of the Realm. It's by again Mildred Lewis. I think you can find it online because I think it's a webcomic. Yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah, it's a webcomic. So yeah, and so they're trying to figure out, and they're trying to balance, college and being superheroes. And some of them actually are straight, some of them are not. And I just bought it because it's funny and touching and heartwarming, and it shows the true power of friendship with fighting. So yeah, uh, I got nothing else to say about this except this is actually a book I've read 3 times already. I've read this book 3 times. Okay, 4, 5 times. I've read this 5 times. Only once so far this year. I'm gonna make it 6 someday because I really like this book. And so yeah, um, this book is actually pretty good in my opinion. Sorry I can't explain much, but I've been doing nothing but reading for a while, and I'm just doing this again. So yeah, this is again Agents of the Realms by Mildred Lewis. A pretty damn good book. You should not watch it, read it. And the last book I have is Can I Say by Travis Barker. And this is pretty much This is exactly what it says in the tin. It's a memoir written by Travis Barker with Gavin Edwards, author. And yeah, it pretty much tells his whole life story about how he grew up, how he got into like skateboarding and drumming, and how he got into bands like the Aquabats, then Blink 182, and how much of a busy person he is, and like his tattoo, like how he got his first tattoos, the tragedy that befell him, you know, the plane crash and how he described it. It's actually a pretty moving and sometimes pretty brutal memoir because he had to relive the best parts but also the worst parts of his life. And it's actually a really, really good book, which I'm sad to say I want to read again, but I can't recommend more because honestly, this is actually pretty much a really inspiring book because again, it just talks about his life in general and how he feels, like um, how much he loves being in the band, like being a musician, being a father, being a husband, and also he talks about the downfalls of being a celebrity, like his reality TV show and um, and his drug use. Well, yeah, his drug use and his plane crash and his horrifying recovery. Like I thought it was bad, but how he described it, it was horrible. It was painful. It is actually downright painful. And how he pulled through is like pretty much amazing in terms of like pure godsend in terms of like how he got through it and like how he got over it, and he created like music again, and how he has a strict regimen of drumming because he's so passionate about it. And so, yeah, it actually is like a soul-bearing book where he's like, it's cuts and all, like pretty much cuts and all in terms of like, like cuts and bruises and all. I'm just gonna show you an example, like literally cuts and bruises, like like right here in the office note, he actually flat out says like some of these are actual blood, like the splatter marks right here, like this. That's pretty much his actual blood, and so the blood splatter design is based on his own DNA and scanned by someone. So because here's the apparently every time he drums, a lot of the time he drums, his wrists are bleeding. Like his cartilage, he pretty much has no cartilage apparently, and like his knuckles go raw and they start bleeding, and it's like all over his drum kit. I'm like, okay, that's some dedication. Like I know eventually he's gonna have to slow down, but right now he's actually doing amazing in terms of like what he's doing, and so like I can't recommend this enough. Read this book. I know it only goes up to when California, Blink-182's California came out, but trust me, it actually is a really good book, and I hope in the future he comes out with an updated version of this. And yeah, I recommend this as being the only LGBT book that I've read this week. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, that's pretty much that. And that's it for the books that I've read this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you and take care.